When mapping the human lifespan from age 20 to 80, the decade between 40 and 50 represents a zone of architectural realignment. This transition is far more than a simple decline in metabolic speed. It is a sophisticated, systemic reorganization of the body's hormonal, metabolic, and digestive architecture. A core tension defines this period. The system's resilience to poor nourishment decreases exactly as the physiological requirement for nutrient density rises. Successfully navigating middle age requires abandoning the dietary shortcuts and high-volume eating habits of youth in favor of a highly engineered model of precision nourishment. Foods that provided effortless energy at age 25 can drive metabolic dysfunction and physical heaviness at age 45. In this decade, precision nourishment becomes the primary lever for maximizing your functional health span. The first barrier is anabolic resistance. This is a state where aging muscle tissue loses its sensitivity to protein intake and exercise, making it significantly harder for the body to maintain or build muscle from the same amount of food. This chart highlights the quantitative shift. By age 52, most individuals face a 20 to 40% decrease in skeletal muscle mass and a 40% decline in mitochondrial protein synthesis. This decay is triggered by a simultaneous drop in anabolic hormones. Growth hormone, IGF-1, DHEAS in men, and estrogen in women all decline, removing the chemical signals that normally preserve physical tissue. This hormonal drop initiates a destructive feedback loop, leading to muscle loss. Because muscle is the primary site for glucose disposal, its loss drastically lowers metabolic rate. This forces the body to store excess energy as visceral fat rather than utilizing it for fuel. Sarcopenia represents a systemic metabolic crisis that breaks the body's energy regulation system. On a cellular level, the focus shifts to the mitochondria, the engines responsible for generating ATP energy through oxidative phosphorylation. The bioenergetic consequence of a 40% decline in mitochondrial protein synthesis is severe. The cell physically loses its capacity to generate power. This impairment is the mechanical cause of the heavy fatigue reported in middle age. When cellular energy is low, protein synthesis and cellular repair both slow down, limiting the body's ability to recover from daily exertion. We then encounter the absorption paradox. The body requires fewer total calories, but needs a higher concentration of micronutrients, even as its digestive machinery begins to fail. In youth, stomach acid rapidly breaks down dietary protein. After 40, lower acid allows undenatured proteins to pass unbroken into the intestine. This traps vitamin B12 inside the protein matrix, making it impossible to absorb. In this environment, simply eating more food is ineffective if the extraction mechanism is broken. This makes crystalline B12 from supplements or fortified foods essential, as it does not require gastric acid for release. Further down the tract, the production of pancreatic and brush border enzymes, like lactase, also declines. These enzymes are no longer sufficient to process the complex materials escaping the stomach. This leads to acquired intolerances. Undigested lactose and fats move into the colon, where they undergo microbial fermentation, causing gas and systemic inflammation. The risk is compounded by slower colonic transit time and reduced acid barriers, which allow bacteria to migrate from the colon into the small intestine, a condition known as SIBO. Without precise dietary intervention, the very nutrients meant to fuel the body instead transform into inflammatory gut pathogens. Aging also drives hyperinsulinemia. Even in individuals with normal weight, the system requires much higher insulin concentrations just to manage baseline blood glucose. Chronic high insulin levels actively suppress autophagy. This shuts down the essential cellular cleaning process that removes damaged mitochondria and proteins from the body. Furthermore, chronic insulin keeps the mTORC1 pathway permanently activated. In youth, this builds muscle. After 40, it primarily drives the accumulation of cellular damage and low-grade inflammation. This molecular shift is why high-carbohydrate diets tolerated in your 20s become a primary driver of accelerated aging and metabolic drag in middle age. To manage insulin exposure, we look to chrononutrition. This focuses on glycemic variability, the size of your blood sugar spikes, a potent biomarker for cardiovascular health. These graphs contrast two patterns. The top shows high-variance spikes of standard eating, while the bottom shows a stable, low-glucose eating waveform. Stabilizing this requires aligning caloric intake with your circadian rhythm by front-loading calories at breakfast and lunch when insulin sensitivity peaks. The final rule of this pattern is a strict 12-hour nighttime fasting window. This low insulin window is required to reactivate nighttime autophagy and lipid metabolism. Optimal aging requires acknowledging that the timing of a meal can exert as much control over metabolic outcomes as the ingredients themselves. Precision nourishment also utilizes culinary techniques as a form of external pre-digestion. This reduces the energy the gut must expend to access nutrients. Sprouting is a primary example. Germinating a seed breaks the lock of phytic acid and releases enzymes that begin chopping up complex starches into easily absorbable amino acids before you even take a bite. Thermal precision is equally important. High heat methods like grilling cause extreme protein denaturation and form advanced glycation end products, which significantly reduce the usability of the protein. Methods like steaming or sous vide preserve moisture and keep amino acids accessible to your declining digestive enzymes without taxing the kidneys or gut. In middle age, relying on raw digestive power is no longer efficient. You must prepare food so that its molecular payload is bioavailable the moment it enters the mouth. To overcome anabolic resistance, the dietary target for high-quality protein must increase to between 1.2 and 1.6 grams per kilogram of body weight, distributed evenly throughout the day. This requirement highlights a specific risk with poorly formulated ketogenic diets. Animal-heavy keto patterns create a high net acid load in the bloodstream. To keep blood pH within a safe range, the body must neutralize this acidity by pulling alkaline calcium salts out of the skeletal reservoir. This sustained bone resorption accelerates demineralization and fracture risk. All dietary models must prioritize musculoskeletal protection. Chasing weight loss at the expense of lean muscle and bone density is catastrophic to long-term health span. We can synthesize these strategies using the World Health Organization's intrinsic capacity model, focusing on the vitality domain as the ultimate measure of aging success. In this model, precision preparation, timed meals, and high protein intake act as the direct fuel inputs for your systemic vitality. By maximizing vitality during your 40s and 50s, you build the physiological buffer required to maintain locomotion and cognition well into your 80s. The precision applied to nourishment in middle age is the architect of the functional independence enjoyed in later life. Long-term health span results from a deep mechanistic respect for the body's evolving rhythms.